Hello, my name's Ian. I'm going to be having my standards check in a few weeks' time on the 26th of October, and I want to talk about that because it will help me to verbalise what I know about the standards check. If it helps other people, that's great. The first thing I want to know is my trainer Neil Dick thinks I look like a ninja wearing this. So I just wondered if you could put anything in the comment section to say whether I look like a ninja or not. So I've got the standards check form here, and what it is it's we need to be looking at standards check in a positive way. So we it's not a perfect system. The DVSA want to make sure that we as driving instructors are doing a good job. So it's a way they can measure it, and it's a way they can see if we're doing a good job while we're teaching people to drive. So it's broken into 17 different areas, and there's a score of 0 to 3 for each area, so the maximum score is 51. To pass you need to have at least 31 out of 51, and then to get a grade A you need 43 out of 51, so that's the score. It's very similar to the part 3 now. So when you qualify as a driving instructor, there's 3 exams you need to pass, and the part 3 is the last exam on how well you teach people. So the first thing that we start off with is the lesson planning. So did the trainer, this is on the form, you can, if you type in standards check form SC1 in Google, it will come up. So did the trainer identify the pupil's learning goals and needs? So we need to agree with the customer about what their goals are for this session. So we're looking at what they want to achieve. So if they did roundabouts last time and they felt about 4 out of 10, we'll say, do you want to, what part of roundabouts do you want to improve? So it might be the mirror signal, position, speed, look. It might be the gear changes. It could be any part of that. So we need to listen to them to see what their goals and needs are. So they might have goals, but they might have needs that they can't see. So it's up to us as driving instructors to help them with their needs. Was the agreed lesson structure appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability? So we're looking at, we don't want to take them onto really busy roads when they're still starting. So we need to sort of make sure that that was where the practice area is suitable. So was the agreed lesson structure appropriate for the pupil's experience and ability? So what their experience and ability is, we need to be able to gauge that and actually get their ability to fit in with their experience. We need to fit the training in with that experience and ability. Was the lesson plan adapted when appropriate to help the pupil work towards their learning goals? So let's say we're doing country roads with somebody and they're struggling with the emerging from a minor road into a major road. We need to change the lesson plan. We need to get their agreement, say, look, we're going to do country roads, but we need to just go over that right emerge, because he didn't stop in time. There could have been a car coming, a motorbike coming. We need to go over that. Are you okay if we go and do that instead, just for a while, and then if you get that, we can move on to country roads? So we need to make sure that we sort any problems out, and that we get their agreement on that, so that they're buying into the fact that they need to emerge safely. So the risk management side of it, there's lesson planning, which is the first 5 parts. Then we've got the risk management, which is 6 parts. You need to score a minimum score on the risk management. You need to score at least 7 on that. So did the trainer ensure that the pupil fully understood how responsibility for the risk would be shared? So the idea, we go over the fact that there's dual controls, and we say that it's a job share basically. So I've got the dual controls. I'll keep the car safe, so don't worry. But the idea is that you, as the customer, you're going to eventually do most of the driving, until eventually doing all of the driving, and I'm just keeping you safe and just sitting there doing nothing. Then you go for your test and show the examiner that you're safe enough to go out on your own. So the responsibility for the risk at the start tends to be mainly with the instructor, and then it goes, eventually we pass that over to the customer. We're looking for directions and instructions given to the pupil clear and given in good time. So we need to explain what's happening ahead well in advance. So we come up to a roundabout, we're going to go straight ahead to the roundabout and we're going to turn immediately left. So they know that before we get there, rather than go over the roundabout and say, oh, it's left here, when they haven't really got time to process it. So we need to give directions clear and in good time. So the trainer needs to be aware of the environment and the pupil's actions. So if they're not aware of what's going on, then that's a problem. So we need to be aware, is the situation getting too busy? Is it just too much for the customer? And is the learner dealing with the situation? Is the learner dealing with what's going on okay? Was any verbal or physical intervention by the trainer timely and appropriate? So we need to be able to say at the time they're making the mistake and help them. If it's really the situation's getting out of control, we need to just pull over and say, well, just hold that for a minute, try and remember that, we're going to pull over and discuss that. Was sufficient feedback given to help the pupil understand any potential safety critical incidents? So if there's potentially safety critical incidents, we need to address that with the customer. So we'd pull over and discuss that, unless we can do it on the move quite safely. Was the teaching style suited to the pupil's learning style and current ability? So we ask, going back to the start. At the start we say, is any risk today with the weather or road conditions? So we get them to look at whether it's bright. If it's bright, then we can obviously put the sun visor down. If it's raining, then we've got to think about pedestrians. If it's very unpleasant weather, pedestrians aren't going to be concentrating as much. They might rush across the road without actually thinking as much. So we've got to think for them, and we've got to try and take that into account. So if the weather's bad, we need to be a bit more flexible and give people more time to make decisions to cross roads, that sort of thing. So was the teaching style suited to the pupil's learning style and current ability? So we need to find out how the customer learns best. So if they learn best by doing things, we need to go over that, make sure that they do understand best by doing things. If the pupil learns by visual, by watching videos, YouTube videos, we need to, I send them videos that I've done on YouTube, and we need to show them diagrams, pictures. I've got a magnetic board with cars on it, and I show them the different layouts, that sort of thing. So we need to work with their learning style, if you like. So was the pupil encouraged to analyse problems and take responsibility for their learning? So self-directed solutions tend to remember them more. So when I was learning to drive almost 30 years ago, what it was when I overtook and pulled back in, I said to myself, get both headlamps in that mirror before I pull in. And because I worked that out for myself, I learned a lot better. So we try and get the customer to learn to think up solutions themselves, and then they'll take it in better. Opportunity examples used to clarify learning outcomes. So if we're doing pedestrian crossings, we need to make sure that we talk about every single pedestrian crossing. That's just something that I've done in the past where I've missed them because I've been so absorbed in what I'm doing. So we need to use examples on the road where we can teach them what the subject's about that we're teaching that day. Was technical information given comprehensive, appropriate and accurate? So driving the essential skills, it's a thick book like that. When I was training, they said to read it cover to cover 3 times and you'll pass the theory, and I got 100%, 99%. So make sure you know what you're doing. So driving the essential skills, just read that cover to cover 3 times, and any technical information should be comprehensive, appropriate and accurate. Was the pupil given appropriate and timely feedback during the session? So we need to give appropriate feedback and also timely. So it can't be 20 minutes down the line or 20 minutes ago you did that roundabout badly. It needs to be pretty soon so that they can correct it. Were the pupils' queries followed up and answered? So if they ask a question, obviously they're the customer, you make sure they're happy with the answer. did the trainer maintain an appropriate non-discriminatory manner throughout the session? So we try not to point across them. We just treat them with respect. Obviously, we try not to cross the middle of this, but sometimes you have to grab the steering wheel. So for safety and for looking after the car, we're allowed to cross this centre line here, but otherwise try not to. And then at the end of the session, we try and get the pupil to reflect on their own performance. So, you know, how do you feel you did, and just reflect on that. So yeah, so just get them to think about what they did in the session, and how they could have done better, or if they could have done better, and get them to think about that. So that's the basic introduction to the standards check, and it's also suitable for the part 3. So if you could just comment in the comment section to sort of see whether you agree with Neil Dix that I look like a ninja, I'd appreciate that. If you've got any comments on what I've just said, I'd appreciate that too, because I've got my standards check. I've done it a few times, but I've got it at the end of the month, and I just want to try and, well, the best ways to learn sometimes is to teach others it. So by sharing what I know a little bit about the overview to the standards check, it will help me at the end of October. So I hope to do some more videos where going into these things a little bit more in more depth. So if you could put in your comments exactly what you think, just be brutally honest, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.